Good morning. I'm Schut, and I'm the author of the Scotch Gambit Modern Attack Beginner's Guide. In this third video, I will take you through the difficult moves of chapter 3 and 4. So every author has an access to the difficult moves of all the students combined of the course, and you can see here chapter 3. And on the first line, there were over 4,000 attempts and 1,100 mistakes for an accuracy of 72%. So I'm going to take you through the lines with knight g4, bishop c5, and knight g4, d6, and explain the logic and connect it to tabiyas that we want to reach. Before I do it, I would like to switch to Lichess and just show you the relative frequency of these variations. So here we have the position after 5e5 by white, and you can see in the rapid and classical games the most frequently played move is d5, and that's the move that we discussed in chapter 1 and 2. Knight g4 is played in slightly less than 20% of the games. So slightly less than 20% of the games, but actually it's not a bad move. So after knight g4, we castle, and we'd like to play just rook e1 and then h3. The knight goes to h6, take the knight, damage the pawn structure, and then attack the king. That's the basic plan. But you can see actually in this position, so after castle, we have the move knight g to e5 played in 36% of the game. Bishop c5 is played in 23% of the games, and bishop e7 is played in 19% of the games. So d6 is not played a lot on club level, but when I go to the master level, you can see that d6 is played in almost 80% of the games. So let me return. Lichess database, rapid and classical, 1600 and higher. And the first move played in 36% of the games is knight e5, but that immediately loses a piece to rook e1, and then after the pin, attack the pinned piece with f4. Bishop c5 in our course, right? So this was the second play. We play c3 and then play bishop takes f7, queen d5. We will come back on it. And after bishop e7, we play rook e1, and now we get into this typical plan. If black castles, we play h3, bishop takes h3, and after black recaptures, we can attack the black king with queen d2, and where we have a better position. So let me just go back just to summarize. So e5, knight g4, played in 20% of the games. After that, we castle, and we see the first three entries, 36%, 23%, and 19%. We get a great attack. The most difficult line is the line that's being played at master level, which is played 8% on rapid and classical, 1600 and higher. So I'll switch now to Chessbase and show you what moves students are playing. So when you go to difficult moves, and I would select the first one, right, I can see besides knight d2, you're playing c3 and h3, and I will discuss the pros and cons of the different moves. So I'm in chess base, knight g4 played in 20% of the games. We castle with this idea of rook e1 and h3, damaging the pawn structure because the knight has to go to h6. And we go to bishop c5. So most often played was this move, knight takes e5, but then we win a piece by taking back on e5, pinning, and then attacking the pinned piece with f4. But after bishop c5, we immediately play c3. So what are the other moves that students suggested here? There's rook e1. Well, it's a recurring theme, d3. So we cannot play after bishop c5, which is already looking to f2. We cannot play rook e1 because of d3. So the other surprising move is that when we play h3 immediately, with the idea after bishop c5 to say, you know, I'm going to kick the knight, and if the knight takes, I'm going to pin it. Well, let's see what happens. If we now play f4, d3, king h1, black has queen h4, also a move that we saw coming in the previous variations, and after f takes e4, bishop takes h3. So this bishop on c5 is really looking at the king on g1, and that's why we cannot play h3 here immediately. Also, bishop takes f7 is sometimes played, but this is nothing special actually for white. So this is not something that we want to achieve. So we are going to play c3 with the idea that we just want to take on d4 with the c pawn, and we would have a very strong center with two pawns in the center, and black would have to lose a tempo to save their bishop on c5. So most often played is d takes c3, and this allows us the standard double attack with taking on f7 followed by queen d5, kind of a combination that you see often in the Evans Gambit. So after d takes c3, some other moves that have been played are knight takes c3, but now black can just take, and again the bishop on c5 is pinning the pawn on f2, so we don't have the follow-up of f4. So we would like to get damage the pawn, the structure of the black king by playing bishop takes f7, and like to get to the double attack with queen d5. If we play queen d5 immediately with a double attack on f7 and the bishop on c5, black can defend with queen e7, protecting the bishop on c5 and protecting the pawn on f7, and black is better. So that's the first knight g4 line. Now we go to the master level, and this is a perhaps difficult to understand line for club players. So e5, knight g4, played in 20%, castle, and now d6. So we take, bishop takes d6, and we check. And now king f1. And I just would like you to take a moment to think about what is going. So we are a pawn behind, the pawn on d4, but look at the king on f8 and the rook on h8 and the activity of those two pieces. So the king on f8 will not be safe, and the rook on h8 has great difficulty ever getting into the game. So despite being a pawn down, white has more than full compensation and is actually slightly better here. But I can imagine that it's not easy to understand that in this position, that actually white is slightly better. So in the course, I continue knight d2 with the idea of knight e4. So there are some alternatives like c3 that's being played by players, and I agree that if we would get to this position, we would be more or less okay, although you could say that the tension is slightly out of the position compared to the line that we are suggesting. But look at this line. Suddenly we have to work hard to get this pawn on d3 back. So this is not what we're aiming for. I would say that the initiative has slightly shifted to black. h3 is a good alternative. So let's have a look. But here black has queen f6. And now h6, bishop d5. And of course the idea of white is to take on c6 and then regain the pawn on d4. But in that case, black would have the bishop here. And with more pieces leaving the board, it becomes easier for black to untangle themselves and get his king into safety and his rook on h8 into the game. So my preference for this position is knight b to d2. And now knight e5. And we just bring our bishop back to b3. And now we just continue with moves like knight e4. And black is just like +1 according to Stockfish. Because of the position of the black king, the rook on h8. And we're going to build the pressure over time. Just also to show, because I think the most played move after knight b to e2 is bishop f5. So we kick the knight, trade the knight, play bishop b3. And now if you would say, okay, so let's try to get this king on f8 to a square, such that the rook on h8 can develop. So for instance, g6, knight e4, and now bishop g5, and white is already winning again. So you can see what the initiative of white is, how big the initiative actually is. And even after other moves like bishop b3, c5 to defend this pawn, and knight e4, bishop takes e4, rook takes e4. Also in this position, white is better and has the initiative because black did not solve their problems of the king on f8 and the rook on h8. And for instance, in this position, white might be aiming for queen h5. Queen h5 with the idea of attacking the knight 2 times and also putting pressure on f7. And that can be supported by a move like, for instance, bishop f4 to eliminate the defenders there. So white is better. This is unlikely for any club player to occur on the board, but for masters I included this line so they are armed and understand what to do. So we go to chapter 4. And in chapter 4, there are 2 lines which are quite similar, and I've had questions what the difference is. So we have a line where there is d6, d4, take, queen takes, and then we play knight c3, and we play subsequently bishop f4, castle long with an attack. And there is a line where black plays h6, everything's get traded, and in that case we castle short. So people are confused, like why do we castle short here and why do we castle long in the other line and play knight c3, bishop f4? That's basically the main question. Also to come back, for me, how I remember it, I think if you look to players who are playing h6, they're afraid for the move knight g5 by white. And then, so they are afraid and they don't develop their pieces. And then secondly, they reduce all the tensions by trading. In this case, after castle, black cannot develop normally anymore because after knight f6 we have e5, d takes e5, bishop takes f7, and if the king takes on f7 we win the queen on d8. So you lose time with h6, you weaken the squares h5, g6, f7, and this allows white to set up this kind of attack. So for me, this is like double chicken. Like h6 is a chicken move, and trading and releasing all the tension on d4 with knight takes d4 is the second chicken move. So we have double chicken with 3h6 and trading on d4 and releasing all the tension. And we have single chicken, where the single chicken just releases the tension but doesn't play h6. So in this case, we play queen takes, knight takes f6. If we would now, right, so this is the first position, we play knight c3. If we would play in this position, e5, the white king has not castled because h6 castle has not been included, and black can play queen e7, pinning the pawn, and we can defend it one time. But after black brings more attackers, we lose the pawn on e5. In addition, also, black has queen b4 in the position. So if we are uncastled, black can defend themselves by playing after e5, e5, queen e7, pinning the pawn on e5. So that's an important difference. h6 castle, and there's no pin on the e-file, and also no checks after we would take on d8 with bishop b4 check. So that is the reason why we continue knight c3. So let's just continue. The second thing is to say, okay, bishop e7. And now we play bishop f4. Again, we can say castle, castle, and white is slightly better. White has control over the center, is better developed. So castle is in that respect not a bad move. But if you think about after this move, bishop e7, we have a lead in development, we control the center. So we'd like to have more imbalances to take advantage of our lead in development and space advantage. And that's why we're aiming to castle long. And we castle opposite side, and now we can start attacking with f3 and with g4. Also, the bishop on f4 looks weird, but it controls the square e5 and is also not subject to attacks by the knight on f6 with knight g4. So it's giving white very easy play, and f3 g4 is coming, and the attack of white is just much quicker than the attack of black. So when we go back, bishop e7, castle, castle is not bad, but it's a bit tame. And bishop f4, castle long is more aggressive. And in this case, after e5, d takes e5, it's just equal. So we can take on d8, but the bishop can take back, and then and if we take with the queen on e5, black just castles, and the tension is out of the position. So we have to time it right. And in this case, single chicken, no h6 castle in the position, but only knight takes d4. We are aiming to take advantage of our activity by castling long and playing bishop f4, followed by f3, g4. The last one is this position. So after d6, yes, we have opportunity to play knight g5 immediately here, because after knight g5, how is black going to defend this pawn? And you can see we could take here and say, oh, we might win a pawn potentially, but actually this is nothing special. So this is equality, and that's not what we're striving for. So I thought that knight g5 is a very interesting move, castle is of course, it maintains the tension, and it's okay. It's a standard Philidor, but I think knight g5 gives black a lot of opportunity to go wrong, because there's only one move to defend d5, and we take. And in this case, of course, there's already the thematic fried liver attack, and with a winning position. So this is an opportunity for black to go wrong and for white to get a very quick victory. So I think in that case it is interesting after d4, d6 to go directly with knight g5 and give black a challenge immediately. So d5, e takes d5, and now knight takes d4. And now the question is, how do we continue? And we would like to kick the knight first before we play d6. So the book move in the course is c3. And let's see, if we don't include c3, we immediately go for d6. Queen takes d6. Now we see that there's queen b4, attacking the king on e1, attacking the queen on c4 with a double attack. And if we play c3, that is not in the position. So we can take here, and after king e7, bishop e3, queen a6, the king can no longer castle, bishop g4 is coming, and it feels a bit like a Traxler, where black is taking the initiative over. So we can see here what a pressure suddenly black has, despite the fact that the king has been checked on f7 and is currently on e7. But we see there's a discovered attack of the knight on d4. The king cannot castle. So we'd like not to give black this opportunity after knight d4 by playing d6 to play queen takes d6, threaten queen b4. It looks very promising because we can take with check. King e7. Now the threat is, of course, h6, getting rid of the defender of the bishop of f7. So the bishop retreats. Then after queen a6, the king can no longer castle, and bishop g4, rook d8 is coming with a lot of power. After castle, bishop c5, and now if we would say we are going to chase the knight away and then play our d6, there's bishop g4, and we cannot play f3 because of discovered attack. Knight takes f3 with the bishop on c5, and you can see now that black can just take, and everything is defended. So by playing bishop g4 and bishop c5, the tactics that were in the position have gone. Okay, so thank you very much. This was the third installment of the video series covering chapter 3 and 4. Please leave me some feedback, what you think about the videos, if you would prefer to have a Q&A instead of these videos reviewing the difficult moves. And if you don't like to miss out on any videos, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And also, if you really appreciate the videos in the course, I hope you can give it a 5-star rating. Thank you for your attention and have a nice day. Bye-bye.